Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Tuesday, blessed Independence Day for all of my American brothers and sisters out there. And welcome to episode 447 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we are going to continue our conversation that we've now been having the last few streams about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny completely getting destroyed at the box office, completely just destroying itself and flopping in spectacular fashion to the point where even Tony over at Deadline, looking at you, Tony, over there, is talking about how this film is not too far off another 4th of July weekend catastrophe, which was Superman Returns box office from some time ago. So we'll talk about that, and also how Tony is continuing to, make excuses, try to make things not sound nearly as bad as they actually are for this movie. We're also going to talk about a good film, a film that I think is a very important film to watch and to support, if for no other reason than to at least get the conversation going about its subject matter. And that is, of course, the new film starring Jim Caviezel, Sound of Freedom. And so we will talk about that film. Also, I will share with you information about how you can actually get a free ticket to go and see it. There's a really cool campaign that they are doing for the film that I think is just very smart. It's, I think, also very cool how they're doing it. I've never seen a film do this before. Not to say that no film has done this before. I'm sure that there's probably have been movies that have had this happen before, but this whole pay it forward where you basically can buy tickets. You can actually support the film by going to this site and paying for someone else's tickets. And so there's this pool of money where if you want to go see the film and you possibly cannot afford to see the movie, you can actually claim a free ticket. So I think that's really, really cool what they're doing. So I'll give my thoughts about that. If you want to have more information about my general thoughts on the movie itself, I do have a full review on the channel. That video, by choice, was demonetized. So if you have any ads playing before, please let me know, because I have ads turned off for that video for a wide variety of reasons. And I think that it is a very important film to see and a very important discussion to have, especially when so many innocent children in our own country, across the world, are being impacted in such a way by modern day slavery. And I think that might unfortunately be the kindest way to even explain it, which is just insane in context. But before getting further, though, please make sure to smash the like button, the fire button, Odyssey, smash the rumble button as well. And we'll go ahead and say hello to the people in the chat. We got Abomination hanging out over on Odyssey. What is going on, Abomination? Thank you very much for being in the chat today. Love you being over here. We got General Wingster, who came in early today, around 2:47, to start us off right. America! Yeah, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. William DeStefano, what is going on? Welcome back. Chris Rose in the chat. Hail to you. This will be good. Hail, Odin. Hope your week is going well, besides the ruining again of another beloved character. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Though I think that some would argue that the character was already given a pretty bad treatment back in 2008. I don't think there's any question that as far as Indiana Jones films are concerned, though, this is by far a much worse experience and a much worse treatment of the character. Kimberly G, who is a member on the channel, want to say happy 4th of July. Us fireworks, I'll be dipping in and out. No problem at all, Kimberly G. Yeah, we have to, of course, keep an eye on the pups, because especially River, she is not a huge fan of the fireworks. She's already at my feet, even though there haven't been too many fireworks yet. But we've had them pretty much every night the last couple of nights. Wayward Noodle in the chat, what is going on? Welcome back. We got Bruce in the chat hanging out. What's going on, Bruce? Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, how about a hockey player? How is it going? Cat and Philly, hail to you. Just another red shirt, who is a member. What's going on? Sherry Allen in the chat, what's up? Great Wooda also hanging out with us. Orange Hat Reviews, the King Mod on the channel. Hail to you, good sir. Please do follow his instructions if you have a comment or question on whichever platform, whether you're watching on YouTube, Rumble, or Odyssey. I also live stream to Kick and Twitter, though I don't have any of those chats. Twitter, I don't think, has a chat at this point, but I know Kick probably does. But no one watches on Kick at this point. I just have it as an option for anyone that happens to like that medium, happens to like that platform. But just put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment. Lets me know you're trying to get my attention. And I try to read every single comment that does that, including, of course, any members' comments. One of the perks of being a YouTube member. Also be respectful, as Orange Reviews will indeed lay down the hammer, if need be. Also, Laura, the Modern Major General, who I see is in the live chat right now. Hail to you. Again, Miss Minnesota Hockey fan, how about a hockey player? Always great to have you in the chat. They call me Mr. Williams in the chat. What is going on? Let us see. Who else we got? We got Forever Sci-Fi. What is going on? He says, hail all. Happy Independence Day. Absolutely blessed 4th to you. Hope that you're doing well. What's up, Great Wood? I saw that you tagged me in there. What's going on? Who else we got? Who else we got tonight? Cthulhu in the chat. What's going on, Cthulhu? King Kane Rumsky hanging out over on Rumble saying happy 4th. Happy 4th to you as well. Abomination still over on Odyssey. Laura, I am super sleepy with a belly full of meat, but I'm here. Boom, Laura. Glad to hear it. We actually had a very un-American 4th of July meal tonight. We had our barbecue the other day, in fact, because we didn't really time it out well. Because when you have a toddler, it's really difficult sometimes to plan out meals in advance, especially when the Lady Freya is, carrying baby girl. So it becomes that much more complicated, especially when certain meals sound really good one day and not so good the other day. So we ended up having some pizza tonight, and it was delicious. It was delightful. Rob D, what is going on? Welcome back. Said, hello, Odin, what's going on with the summer box office? Everything is flopping. Interestingly enough, everything is flopping, and yet, according to Deadline, it's only about 2% below where the summer box office was last year. So take that with a grain of salt. I have not looked at the numbers in any detail to be able to confirm that or not, but I do find it interesting because I think what they are probably doing is looking just at overall box office and not looking at which films came out and how much those films cost in the process. Though I don't remember last year talking about pretty much every single film flopping. I do find it interesting also that if you remember from last year had the behemoth that was Top Gun Maverick coming out over the summer. And some might say, yes, but we do have another billion-dollar film that came out this year in the Super Mario Brothers movie, but that's not a summer movie. So I'll actually be interested to see if in their metrics they're counting Super Mario Brothers as a summer release or as a part of the summer box office. Because if they are, oh boy, that's a lie. It's like, yes, that movie for the year you can absolutely count, but for the summer, I have to say nay. Sherry Allen Tag to say, happy Independence Day. Hope you and your family doing well. Absolutely. Feta Gator, what is going on? Welcome back into the chat. Dean H, what's going on, Dean? I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you in the chat, man. Says, hail America, happy 4th of July. Dean, welcome back, brother. Surge's channel over on Rumble, what is going on? Hail to you. Thanks for being here. I'm here for the fire. I'm here for the fire. My marshmallows are ready. Happy 4th. Yes, indeed. We've got a fire to set. Actually, no, the fire's already been set with this Indiana Jones box office. General Wingster, you didn't sing the song. I said America. That's where I stopped, though, General Wingster. This is a family-friendly show, as you well know, my pet troll. Over on Odyssey, Abomination Tag to say, if the biggest films are losing hundreds of millions, that should mean that there are a bunch of lower budget movies together making hundreds of millions? Yeah, I know, right? It's like, wait a minute, how does this work out where you're looking at movies losing hundreds of millions of dollars for this summer, and I don't remember having that happen last summer. So, again, I would have to call shenanigans on that deadline report, if indeed that is what they are saying. Let me see if I can pull up that headline real quick because, yeah, let's see. Midsummer box office hitting $1.88 billion, 2% from 2022. Again, this is very interesting numbers and metrics that they have going on here, and I don't quite... I'm pretty sure it's being a little nefarious in what it's saying. So it says, again, here's the deadline. This is Tony. This is our buddy Tony over at Deadline, so I'm not really surprised that it says it's only 2% off from 2022. We've had a couple of tentpole missteps this summer. Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, The Flash, Elemental, putting the running summer box office at $1.88 billion from May 1st to July 2nd. Okay, interesting. That's close to 2% off from the $1.91 billion reached over the same frame last year. All these figures come from ComScore. While the pacing isn't terrible, the overall industry always likes to exceed year-over-year expectations. So basically, all that Tony is doing is saying that the total box office specifically is adding up to these numbers, not what the films actually cost. because I would have to bet, Tony, if you took that $1.9 billion made last summer and then compared it to what the films cost to make last summer, guess what? You probably would then have a lot more profits coming in last summer versus this year. So is it really only 2% off if we are looking at it from that perspective? I would have to say nay. Let's see. Library Token over on Odyssey. Thank you very much for the $1 Hyper Chat donation. Appreciate you being over there. Kincaid Rumsky says, how many trolls do you have? I lost count. General Wingster is really the only pet troll that I have. And because he's a pet troll, he's one of the good ones. Great Wuda, what's going on? Still saying hello to the people before diving into the current updated numbers for Indiana Jones. Great Wuda says, yes, I can't wait for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Oh my gosh, still a long title. Great movie title, by the way. No, it's Great Wuda. You making me say it every single time, and every time it's still too long. I'm excited for it, but man, that title. Jenna Wingster, sing Real American instead. Let's see. Laura says, I don't remember anything anti-Indy's character in Crystal Skull, but it's been a while since I saw it. I just remember it's a bad movie. Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I come from it, is even though there's nothing that, from my knowledge, because similar to you, I don't remember much of the film either, nothing that is necessarily like anti-character, because the movie is bad, by default, it makes the character also look bad, or not nearly as good. So that's where I was coming from with that. But yeah, it's good. It's a good point. 8 Sierra, what's going on? Forever Sci-Fi. Crystal Skull was just incompetence. Nyla Dysentery was malicious. I absolutely think that that is an accurate statement and probably the best way to explain it overall. Force of Light Entertainment, what's going on, Michelle? I assume that's Michelle behind the Force of Light Entertainment, so make sure to subscribe to them. They're awesome. Force of Light Entertainment says, just saw Sound of Freedom. I have been emotionally since. I don't know what that was supposed to say. I think it was supposed to say, I have not been that emotional since X movie. And I agree. It's a heartbreaking film. And I said this in my review. Even though I think Jim Caviezel does a great job, the kid actors in that movie deserve even more credit and even more props, because that is, I think, what makes the film and the story so impactful and so powerful. Since seeing it, says Force of Light Entertainment. Gotcha. But that's what I think makes it the most powerful. It is just those performances, and it's important because there are just so many people. Like, it's hard for us to imagine having to actually spell it out that, one, trafficking exists, right? This modern day slave trade exists, and all of just the disgusting details that surround it. So it's sad that we have to actually explain to people that it exists. However, it is a reality, right? There are so many people that just don't know what's happening, either because of ignorance or because, hey, this is actually a good point. Why is the media not covering this stuff nonstop? You know, you would think that with a multiple $100 billion a year industry that is exploiting especially children, you would think that would be kind of front page news, that would be the kind of thing that we should be investigating, that's the kind of thing that we should be trying to fight against. But no, instead, what have we gotten for so many years, especially from the mainstream media? Usually something about Trump, to be perfectly honest. And I think that ultimately is also just a great sign as to, okay, why we shouldn't trust the media. Because the media clearly doesn't want to cover this stuff in the same kind of detail as if it takes a independent studio in Angel Studios to distribute this movie. And, you know, there's the story of all the different hoops that this film had to go through just to be made and just also to be distributed. I think that should also speak to the media and whether they're covering it or not. And the question needs to be asked, why are you covering this? Why are you not covering this? Anyway, Jeremy Zakowski, what is going on? Welcome back to the chat. Says, Kalima. Kalima. Just Joe 47, welcome back. Sherry Allen, I'm good. Dad brought me a keyboard to learn to play yesterday. How is season 3 of Babylon 5 going? I have not watched anything of Babylon 5 since the last time I gave an update. Things have just been kind of crazy at home, so I haven't been able to dedicate the time. There's been other things I've had to focus on, you know, because summertime is a time where I have to do, you know, the stuff around the house too. So I hope to get back to that in the coming days. Also, there's been movies I've been wanting to see as well, but hey, that's awesome. Cthulhu, I can't watch Sound of Freedom because I know how horrible the evil men can be, and it hurts to see. But here's the thing, again, I understand and respect that. I still just think that it's important for us just to know, right? Because it's one thing for us to have like a concept in our head, to actually see it. And here's the other thing too. The film is not graphic. And I think that's a very important detail. It's kind of similar to what happened with Nefarious. When that film came out, everyone, heard the general statement of, oh, it's a story about a demon, a person who's possessed by a demon. And everyone's like, whoa, cool, I don't do that. And hey, I don't do those movies either. But it was not that kind of movie. It was a thriller, right? And that was absolutely something going on in the movie, but there's no, in Nefarious, there was no creepy distorted face or creepy, voice stuff. Like, there was none of that stuff that most horror films try to go with. And that's what made that film so compelling to me, because you also had just great dialogue and this great conversation, a great theological conversation at that. This movie as well, for anyone who might be concerned about, again, this is made by Angel Studios. This is a lot of the same people that have been behind projects like The Chosen and other things. So there's nothing gratuitous in the film. There is some language. It is, I think, a PG-13 rated film. So there is some language, but very minor language at that, I would say. But I do want to give that warning out there. But I think that they do something, in all honesty, that kind of reminded me a little bit of old school Hollywood, where they let you realize, oh, that is what's going on, or, oh, this is what's about to happen. You know how in modern Hollywood, oftentimes, I think it was Laura had this experience with oh my goodness, I forget the name of the film, but you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Basically, in the film, not Sound of Freedom, by the way, just want to make that very, very clear, but in the film that Laura that she had seen, there was a grape scene that apparently happens multiple times. Now, that's why, again, in old school Hollywood, what would have happened? You would have had just, again, the insinuation that something is about to happen, and then the camera cuts away. And it's not even to the point where you're hearing screaming or anything like that. They do not, in my opinion, overindulge in that kind of stuff. And I honestly think that was not only the tasteful thing to do, but also that much more impactful and that much more effective, because you still were able to say, oh, I see exactly what is being presented on screen, but I also don't have to get any extra stuff added in to make it, very clear, saying, oh, in case you didn't know, this is what's happening, right? That's what modern Hollywood does. In fact, modern Hollywood actually would just show you the crap, And so I just want to say that very clearly, that this movie does not have anything gratuitous in it. Again, it is still very upsetting, because you're like, oh, these are real stories. These are, real kids. But when you're seeing the kids, you are seeing them just, again, as they are. You're not seeing anything graphic by any means. So that does not mean that it's not going to upset people to that level, because, again, that type of storytelling where there is that insinuation, again, that brings you to a very, very dark place. But I think this is such an important film for us to see, and such an important story, and such an important fact of life for us just to be able to talk about out in the open, because we don't talk about it nearly enough. And that's, I think, the most important thing about this movie, is that it's getting the conversation going. So if you're someone that, again, does not want to go because you feel that it might bring up certain emotions in yourself that you don't think you can handle, again, total respect. I would still say maybe check out, I'll go ahead and show this now, that this is something that I think that's really cool what they're doing. So let's say maybe you're someone like Cthulhu, where you just don't feel like you'd be able to actually watch it. I would say at the very least then go support the film. So on angel.com, that is Angel Studios' website, you can get here to the Sound of Freedom page, and you can pay it forward. So let's say maybe you don't feel like you'd be able to watch it, but you want other people to support it. You can click on the button here that says pay it forward, and then you can buy, different levels. So if you want to help one person see the movie, you can donate $15, and then it goes, again, this is all based on this average ticket price that we've seen lately. You can also get this package deal where $105 gets you not only tickets for 7 people, but then you also get early access to the film itself when it releases. But what I think is brilliant about this, and what I really love about this overall, is the fact that not only can you pay it forward, not only does it also give you the link to buy tickets, you can claim a free ticket. So can't afford the tickets? Claim a free ticket from someone who paid it forward. So this is not just about supporting the movie, it's also supporting the message, allowing the message to get out there, allowing more people who maybe don't have the ability to afford it, the ability to go and see it. Especially, again, average ticket price being around $15 these days, I think is sometimes difficult for us to justify. So again, there are different ways to support this. Also, even more important than this movie, if you know of any organizations that are there to help support, what it is that people like this federal, this former federal agent in the movie does, I think that's an even better thing, right? Is to actually directly support the organizations that actually help these kids. So anyway, did want to mention that. Let's see. Justin with the red shirt, who is a member, says, I don't have a grill, so I'm cooking chicken broccoli casserole. Don't knock it till you try it. Well, I don't like broccoli unless it's covered in cheese and crisped up in a pan. So let's see. Over on Rumble, Kink and Rumshy, thanks for the tag. Again, if you have a comment or question that you want me to read, just put @Odin. That's all I ask. Put @Odin at the very beginning of the comment. It lets me know you're trying to get my attention. Kike and Rumsky says, clearly the reason it only went down 2% from last year was because they did not account for inflation. Well, clearly that is the case. In fact, that would be the easiest way to show that in all likelihood, it's a lot more than just 2% down from last year when you add in all of those other things. Like, seriously. All right. Let's see. Dan Crane, who is a member on YouTube. Hail Odin, family of Odin. Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day. Blessed 4th. Let's see. Carl. Carl. What's going on? Fred Farkle in the chat. Hail to you. Hardwick. King of the Crystal Skull. Better made than Dial of Destiny from a filmmaking perspective. The cinematography, editing, film. Again, Hardwick, this is not the night for the nonstop, endless comments that are just like reiterating points from one to the other. I'm just going to put that out there now before we get into because I already see that you've now had like at least two comments about that discussion. Anyway, Bruce, numbers don't lie. Fedigator, tag to say, I hope I'm not 1-to-1 note. But D said streaming it over exceeded their expectations, have paid off investors, and they're now in talks for more nefarious projects. Again, no, not at all, Fedigator, not at all. And the one thing though, I've tried tagging him and the studio in a couple of posts. They need to just, I have a problem with them only having it available to rent. They should just have it available to buy on digital at this point. You can charge an extra $5 for that, still be able to make extra money off of it. But I just do not like when it's, again, I understand why you would have a rental cost as much as it is in today's market. But I don't know. I have issues overall with them not allowing it to be purchased. Forever Sci-Fi, I don't think they're factoring in inflation. Also, how much have they spent on the movies compared to previous years? Exactly. I made those points. JS Pena, what is going on? Hail to you. All right, I'm going to skip that comment. Orange Review says, I was swamped by trolls today on my stream, so I am soaked in the blood of trolls. Nice. Forever Sci-Fi, should we call it Mission Impossible Derp? I mean, hey, I guess you could. However, I don't think that is the I don't think that's the kindest words you could say about the film, especially since we haven't seen it yet. Dan Crane is a member. I heard all the Disney Lucasfilm executives were called back to headquarters in Burbank tomorrow for an emergency meeting on Indiana Jones' performance. Yeah, I mean, again, much love to anyone who reports on those things. Obviously, when it comes to that, unless it is reported in, and I know, again, it's kind of like that double-edged sword where we don't trust the media. I know I don't trust the media, but at the same time, if the information that I get for anything is only coming from someone who claims to have an inside source, again, that's not me knocking the person or anything like that. It's just that it's not easy for me to run with unless it is in a mainstream. Like, basically, it's much easier for me to point someone who is just, again, detracting, denying anything to say, okay, then why, you say it's not a failure, then why is it being talked about in Deadline? Why is it being talked about in Hollywood Reporter as an utter failure? Whereas if I say, oh, well, some guy I know on YouTube has an inside source and he said, so that's the reason why I tend not to run with that kind of stuff. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, Dan Crane, because these numbers have absolutely been abysmal. So General Wingster, Odin slavery doesn't exist except still in America, apparently, because we didn't end it here. I know, again, that's what the crazy thing is. And I think that's the most powerful message is at the end of Sound of Freedom, they have a little text, again, like most of these based on real life events have, where it gives you the data. And one of the data points that it gives is how in today's world, there are more people enslaved than at any point when it was legal, which it just boggles the mind. Laura adds on, the media won't cover child trafficking because only certain groups can be victims. And that is, I think, the most disgusting part of it all, right? Because you think about who the media oftentimes portrays as victims, and then you say, yeah, but how does that compare to an innocent child? And I mentioned this in my review too. I think that the stories going on between the controversies over what is a woman and now the controversy of Sound of Freedom, let's just say they're not equal, but they do rhyme. There are some similarities between them, because what do both of them deal with? Children being targeted, children being directly impacted, and children being harmed. So not only are our children are not for sale, but also our children are not for experiments. So I think that both actually are have a lot of similarities in different ways for that reason. Let's see. Con Wolf, what's going on over on Rumble? Appreciate you being over there. King and Rumsey, thanks for tag, says, you better prepare mentally for questions about broccoli on your pizza. Oh boy. I don't know if I could I could survive that. Steven, what is going on? Hail to you. Thanks for the tag. Says, happy 4th of July. Cheers for being committed to live on a holiday. You doing fireworks? I don't do fireworks personally. I have nothing against them. It's just, to me, it's an extra expense, and my dogs don't like it, and baby Thor is too young to really enjoy them because he's already in bed because he's still only about 2.5. So he's not at the point yet of being able to really appreciate them. So when we get to the point where he stays up a little later and can probably appreciate them, we might do some around the house, but it's not illegal in the area that I'm in, at least. It's a definitely must-see movie for sure, Force of Light. Again, thank you very much for being here earlier. All right, let's see. Laura says, just finished Wednesday today. I wonder if Depp will be in the next season. You think, wait, Johnny Depp? I don't know if Johnny Depp would be in a Netflix show. I don't know. I guess stranger things have happened, but yeah, Sound of Freedom I thought was PG-13. They show just enough, but not too much. Exactly, Force of Light. And also, even what they show, as I said, even what they show is not the level of what modern Hollywood would show, you know? And I think that is a very important distinction, because for some people, again, it was very true with Nefarious as well. Some people were freaked out, didn't want to see it because they thought it would be something that it isn't. And really, the interesting about Nefarious was that I had to give warnings about the trailers before Nefarious, because when they slapped that R rating on it, they had no control over what trailers played before the film. And so the trailers before Nefarious were worse than the movie. Like, the movie was nothing in comparison to the trailers. And this movie being PG-13, really the PG-13 rating is more so because it does make you think about these disturbing things, but it does not show them to you. There's one clever scene in particular where Jim Caviezel's character, who is an agent who has to investigate this stuff, and that's why his performance is great, because you see, and rightfully so, just how much trauma this kind of stuff has on the people who have to investigate and have to actually, bring these scumbags down. The impact that it has of them having to watch this evidence and having to look at it. And there's a scene where they show you his eyes. And modern Hollywood would probably have it so that you could see certain things in the reflection of his eyes. And part of me was kind of like, I don't think they're going to go in that direction because they're not that kind of studio, but And luckily that is the case. It's more so you see that he's watching something. What he's watching is definitely not what you would, again, associate with what probably would have been happening that would have caused his reaction. So I was actually appreciative of the fact that they did not really exploit it. Sometimes there are things that can be so exploitative, and I think that this film is not that. So definitely can promote it in that way for sure. Just a red shirt. We've got tickets to see Sound of Freedom on Saturday. I hope that you, again, when I say I hope that you enjoy it, it's more of that. I hope that you appreciate it. And I hope that it, I hope that it is able to light a fire under all of us. I know it's kind of lit a fire under me, but I hope it can light under all of us. Steven, are you surprised that Secret Invasion is doing bad on viewership? Nope, not at all. It's a terrible show. And they have not done a great job of promoting any of their stuff. Laura, also, I really dislike the casting of Luis Guzman, but the rest of the casting was spot on, especially Ricci. Oh, yeah. Again, there's a lot of things I like about Wednesday. Luis Guzman was definitely one that I didn't like. I didn't hate it as much as I thought it would, though. Yeah, the show's fine. I think that ultimately, though, Jenna Ortega is phenomenal in the role. I think that she does a great job. And that's the reason why I think you watch it. Kimberly G, watch Independence Day Saturday night. Bill Pullman's speech still rocks. It is phenomenal. General Wingster, the sound of freedom better be coming from an eagle. Otherwise, there's going to be some liberation. Steven, which one are you going to watch first, Oppenheimer or Barbie? Oppenheimer. Definitely going to watch Oppenheimer first. However, something tells me Gary's going to make us watch Barbie. And if you ask me which one I think is going to make more money opening weekend, I think globally Barbie, just because it's a property. Individually, domestic versus international, I'm honestly not sure, because Oppenheimer is going to have an audience. I don't think on paper it's going to be nearly as big as what Barbie is going to bring in. But it could be interesting. I'm definitely going to be interested to see what the numbers are as those films are set to come out. All right, we'll go ahead and pause there in the chat and go ahead and dive into the story. So I did also want to mention, again, the first thing you see in the title, of course, The Sound of Freedom. I've already mentioned this a little bit, but I'll mention it again. So if you are still someone where you don't feel that you might be comfortable watching a film like Sound of Freedom, again, it is not exploitative. It's not graphic in any way. There is really the only warning I have to give is that there is language, and mild language at that. Like there might be 3 or 4... And we're not even talking about F-bombs here. Like we're talking about the kind of language that most people would have in their typical, everyday conversation. But there is that language in there. And also, too, it does obviously present, these events as they are happening so that instead of showing you, which, again, thank God that they have not gone that route. And I did not think that they would go that route. But it obviously does make you think, okay, I know exactly what is going to be going on. I know what's being implied by this scene. And so that obviously can be disturbing for many. Obviously it should be disturbing, but how much one can take of that, everyone's going to be a little bit different with that. So even if you can't see the film or you don't feel comfortable seeing the movie, you can go to this site, again, angel.com. I'll actually go ahead and just post this in the YouTube chat at the very least. And if you want to actually, support, so what you can do is you can either claim a free ticket if you want to see the film and you can't afford it, you don't think you can afford it, you can claim a free ticket, or you can pay it forward, which means that basically you're putting into this pool right now. There have been 1.23 million tickets that have been paid for by supporters of the film. So it's 1.2 million tickets out of 192,000 people. So that's amazing. And the goal that they have is to try to have 2 million tickets be bought in advance to allow for people to see it. Again, basically, when you claim the free ticket, it will take from this pool of money that has been raised for people to see the film. And so, again, you can support and pay it forward in that way, even if you don't feel comfortable watching the film itself. And one of the really cool things that this has really done has been making this film, quite a success, even to the point where even Tony over at Deadline has to talk about it. It says, and I think that the wording here is very weird. Jim Caviezel's anti-child trafficking thriller. Pause. Are we at the point where we honestly need to say anti for this? Is there ever gonna be a film about trafficking that is not anti? Like I don't know. Like, to me, that's just a weird statement. That's a weird title. It's like, why would you even put it in there? I don't know. Thriller Sound of Freedom notches $10 million in pre-sales before July 4th opening. Angel Studios' Thriller Sound of Freedom, starring Jim Caviezel, has seen its pre-sales spike to $10 million, and it is getting a pretty wide release at 2,600 screens. Many rivals are tracking this semi-faith-based, based on true story title about former Homeland Security agent Tim Ballard, who took rescuing abducted children around the globe into his own hands. They're spotting a $20 million 6-day start, impressive for a non-major studio adult thriller. We'll see how this plays out. Currently, more than 1 million tickets have been snapped up for Sound of Freedom. So, again, impressive numbers to say the very least. I think it is, again, interesting, the title that is given to this article, but then also semi-faith-based. If by faith-based you mean that the statement, God's children are not for sale, and if that's supposed to be controversial, like when basically, in my opinion, when any writer, when any mainstream media outlet uses that term faith-based, even if he's only saying semi-faith-based, when you hear faith-based movie, you automatically think about God's Not Dead. Like, let's be honest. Most people, when they hear faith-based, think of that movie. And some people might like that movie. Other people might not. I've got issues with that movie, for instance. I just don't think it's a very good movie. I don't think it's well made. But again, when you try to put that label on this film, that I think is already kind of, again, in a very subversive way, trying to tear away people's attention, because some people reading this article who might actually take Tony's word seriously, who might not be people of faith, will get to that point and then just stop right there. I mean, again, there's already going to be people who are going to know enough about this, who are going to see the name Angel Studios, who are going to even hear the name Jim Caviezel, and immediately have a pause. But Tony, come on, man. Really? Is that the kind of stuff that you're going to try and do for that? It's stupid. Talking, though, about box office, let's go ahead and dive into the main story, which I know many of y'all are interested in, which is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny's box office. So right now, 100 people watching. Smash that like button. Thank y'all again for being here. So even Tony over at Deadline is having to talk about this. Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny's $82 million 5-day total, not far from July 4th disaster, Superman Returns. Notice how he says disaster. It goes on. On the bright side for Independence Day bomb, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So you're already calling it a bomb, Tony. Kudos to you. Its first 5 days of the box office of $82 million aren't as bad as Paramount Skydance Terminator Genesis. That sequel's launch just prior to July 4, 2015 left a lot of methane in the air, with $42.4 million in its Wednesday to Sunday totals. The attempted Arnold Schwarzenegger comeback movie ended its domestic run at 89.7 total, which Dial of Destiny will cross before the first week is up. Well, first, hold the phone. $42.4 million in 2015? Yeah, you know what? That'd probably be closer to $60 million in today's dollars when you adjust for inflation. So yeah, it's doing better than what Genesis did, but let's just be honest here. Probably not all by that much. Probably not by that much. In fact, if you take ticket prices and ticket sales into account, what, maybe 1 million or 2 million tickets difference between them? Comparing the 4th of July 10th poll, hits and bombs can be tricky. Here's the excuses. Since the holiday skips around, sometimes studios launch on a Wednesday and sometimes a Friday. For box office fanatics, everything is apples to oranges. Oh, goodness. The last time July 4th fell on a Tuesday was 2017 and 2006. Over the Friday to Tuesday frame, Illumination's Disney's Despicable Me 3 led with 99 million, followed by Sony MRC's Baby Driver with 29.97 million. And again, all of these numbers not adjusted for inflation. With the $300+ million costing, so now you're insinuating that it probably costs more than $300 million? Oh, that's quite an admission there. Tanking this weekend, it's as though box office history is repeating itself. Back in 2006, over July 4th, there was another expensive, highly anticipated franchise sequel. Okay, wait a minute. Hold the phone right here. Okay. There's a lie, Tony. Tony, you're lying. You're lying to us. Don't lie to yourself. He says back in 2006, another expensive, that is true, highly anticipated. Hold the phone. Who was anticipating this movie? Who wanted the studio to make another Indiana Jones film? In all honesty, please tell me, Tony, where were those people? Because guess what? If those people were going to show up at all, they would have showed up opening weekend. And guess what? Nobody showed up. So please spare me that lie, Tony. That is framing, and that is abysmal. Franchise sequel attempt at that also got rejected by fans. At least you're correct with that. With a B+ cinema score, okay, you're using another trash organization. Warner Brothers' Superman Returns from Bryan Singer. The pick cost well in excess of $220 million after endless stories of runaway budget and Singer recreating corn-filled Smallville, Kansas in Australia. Like Superman Returns, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny clocked in at a way too long 2 hours and 34 minutes, thus allowing fewer showtimes for exhibitors. And again, it's interesting when they come up with these excuses for specific films and not for all the films as they come out. Unlike Lucasfilm with the first 4 indie films, the first 4, there's only 3. Tony, another lie. Warner's had depicted Superman from its Richard Donner highs with 1978 Superman, $134.4 million domestic and Superman 2, 108 million domestic, again, unadjusted numbers there. To the Krypton lows of the Richard Pryor 83, Superman 3, 59.9, and 87, Superman Quest for Peace, was swamped with a 15.6 million lifetime cum, that pick directed by Sidney Furie. All 4 films starred Christopher Reeves as the Man of Steel. Superman Returns was Singer's attempt to build out a sequel from the original Donner movies, while also paying homage to them. And again, he goes on and on and on and on to try to make a comparison between Superman Returns and this movie. Now, I'm not saying that there might not be some people out there that say, you know what, Superman Returns and what they try to do with it is very reminiscent. However, I would say that most of us would probably admit that we would much rather watch Superman Returns versus ever seeing Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny ever again. And in fact, I suspect there's probably a lot of people that would rather go see Superman Returns again than ever even see for the first time Dial of Destiny. So trying to compare these two movies, I think, is a bit of a stretch. Because I do think that you can argue that there was some anticipation for another Superman movie back in 2006. You cannot possibly, Tony, argue that there was any anticipation or anywhere close to what would have been anticipation for a Superman movie back in 2006 for an Indiana Jones film in 2023 with an 80-year-old man, Harrison Ford, in the lead role. You're not being honest there, Tony, because here is the actual data. So one, the domestic numbers actually came in over what was projected. It was projected at 60 million. It made 60.3. Oh, good job, Disney. Look at that. Elemental. So, people like John Campea and other shills for Disney, they would say, well, Disney had the top 2 films this past weekend. They're doing great. Come on now. However, it is also important to point out that though it did better domestically, it did worse internationally. So remember how it made $130 million? Right, it made about $130 million going into the weekend, or rather, with the projection for the weekend. It actually is at 129.9. In fact, even terrible garbage website Box Office Mojo, which remember, some people were pointing to like, hey, look, it's doing better than expected. So what Box Office Mojo did was on Sunday, when they put out their projections, they included what Monday and Tuesday might be as numbers. So again, Box Office Mojo's job is not to put as their actual, factual real-time numbers what they think is going to happen. Again, the furthest that you get from that is the Sunday numbers that come out. That is the only one. And then you adjust those numbers. You don't release then not just the weekend numbers, but then the Monday and Tuesday after numbers in addition to that. No, you don't do that. Right? That's why thenumbers.com, right? They have, hey, here's what the Sunday numbers were projected to be, 130, and now they've adjusted them to 129. Whereas as of just a couple days ago, this number was a lot higher than 142. But guess what? This is still also what they suspect is going to happen. So it's insane to me that Box Office Mojo is still being taken seriously at any point. In a point of comparison, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny's numbers, when you compare this film to A Crystal Skull, is even worse than what you could possibly imagine. It only opened at $23 million. That includes its previews, versus Indiana Jones Crystal Skull's $44 million. This is using the adjustments for inflation, with the calculation being done specifically by the numbers, so it's not the most up-to-date metric, so this number is actually higher. But 23 versus 80 million opening day. Opening weekend, 182 versus 60. And since Box Office Mojo wants to play the game of, we're going to include the Monday and Tuesdays, even though they haven't happened yet, okay, $232 million by the first Tuesday is what Crystal Skull did. Dial of Destiny won't even break $100 million by its first Tuesday. So this film right now is tracking about 130 plus million domestic alone behind Crystal Skull. Crystal Skull, of course, did significantly better. It ended up making around $1.1 billion when you adjust. 461 million domestic, 683 million international. With the numbers that we're seeing right now for Dial of Destiny, we can project that this movie will probably struggle to cross $400 million worldwide. Meaning, is it possible? Sure. Mathematically, it's possible. Is it likely? Probably not. What we're looking at is a movie that will probably struggle to get to $350 million, Right now, I would say worldwide, somewhere between 350 and 450. And that might be being very, very generous. We have to, of course, wait and see what the week 1 to week 2 drop-off is going to be. What is most interesting to me is that there is no major release set to come out this weekend. So this film has one weekend with no major competition coming from it. And yet, with an opening of $60 million and films like Elemental making around 12, Spider-Verse making 12, though the chances of Indiana Jones not coming in first place next weekend are pretty low, it'll be hilarious to see where exactly Dial of Destiny does fall in comparison to whatever comes in the number 2 spot. Something tells me it's not going to be nearly as wide of a chasm as it was this past weekend. Ultimately, though, when you look at Spider-Verse and see $340 million, Indiana Jones $60 million, even Elemental's $89 million, you have to ask the question of, when is Disney finally going to fire somebody or let someone leave gracefully? Whatever it is that they're going to do, because it's got to happen at some point. How can you justify this to your stockholders? And if you are a Disney stockholder, at this point, I would say the question needs to be asked, do I need to start trying to sue somebody at Disney for not fulfilling their financial obligations? Because, let's be honest, if anyone can honestly say as a producer or as an executive of Disney that saw this movie, that they thought this movie would actually do well, that they thought the ideas that were being put forward would actually be successful and would actually give fans what they wanted, meaning they would actually make money, I got news for you. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive back into the chat. Let's actually first start off going back over to Rumble. King and Rumsky, what do you project Indy to make overall? So yeah, somewhere between 350 and 450. Yeah, no problem at all, King Kane Rumsky. I sometimes am able to answer questions in advance, not always. But it is not looking good for them whatsoever by any means. Let's see. General Wingster says, I love pizza. Pizza's great. Miss Mon Muses, what's going on, Miss Mon Muses? Thank you very much for being here. General Wingster says, I am a man. I ain't got time to cry or bleed. Steven, do you think Kathleen Kennedy is finally done? Will be fired from Lucasfilm. So I think it was WW Pro, and I know that Renegade, shout out to them, have talked about this. She's not going to get fired. I mean, she should get fired. She deserves to get fired, but her contract is up next year. So contract talks will begin with her probably sometime next year. And in all likelihood, according to them and what they've heard, it seems likely that she will start the process of leaving, meaning that she will leave gracefully, she will retire, something to that effect. That makes the most sense to me. But her getting fired, that just, with everything that's happened so far, it just does not seem likely. Also, people need to remember that she is married to Frank Marshall, a powerful producer in Hollywood. She's really good friends with Steven Spielberg, very powerful. She has very, very powerful friends, which by proxy makes her powerful too. So her getting fired is just not likely going to happen. But do I think that this is the beginning of her end? Yes, but then I would also add to that, how much longer was she going to go on anyway at this point? I don't know. So if she does end up stepping down by choice through retiring in the next 6 to 12 months, it's hard to say whether this is the reason why or if this is just one of the many reasons why. Justin C., what's going on? Welcome back. Let's see. Icthulu says, thank you for letting me know I could buy a ticket with Pay It Forward. Bought a ticket a second ago and hope that everyone recognizes slavery still exists in the United States. Absolutely. Icthulu, God bless you, man. That's awesome. Rob D., I would say that if only one person media outlet is reporting it, it's most likely not true. If everyone is reporting it, it's most likely true. Exactly, Rob D. That's why I tend to go with that. Let's see. Hardwick says, there's another based on true story about human trafficking back in 2010 called The Whistleblower, starring Rachel Weisz. I have not seen it, no, but I'm definitely much more interested to support a film like that, for sure. Let's see. Force of Light Entertainment, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Says Disney refused to distribute Sound of Freedom, which is now funny because it'll actually make money. Highly recommend everyone go to see it. And again, everyone subscribe to Force of Light Entertainment. They are amazing people. But yeah, I mean, again, to me, that speaks volumes, not only from a financial standpoint, but also from a moral standpoint. I was watching something earlier because over weekends and holidays, that's when we allow Baby Thor to have any type of screen time. We don't allow him to have like tablet time or anything like that, but we watch movies. And I think I've mentioned before, he's been huge into Star Wars, OG Star Wars, huge into even Studio Ghibli movies. Specifically, he really likes My Neighbor Totoro. So I've seen that film just, countless times. Today, we actually had probably the most variety. We actually watched 3 classics, right? Again, back when Disney was actually good. We saw A Bug's Life. We also saw Meet the Robinsons was the last one we saw. Very underrated. Very, very underrated film. And before that, we actually had watched WALL-E. It had been so long since I'd seen WALL-E. And it's just it's such a, I think, as far as a film about, you could say, environmentalism, it's probably the most effective and the most on point without getting too preachy. Because you kind of look at that film and you say, okay, there's a lot of that stuff being tried today. Especially when you look at like all the attempts to push us in the direction of VR stuff, you're like, oh, we're not too far off from being in the chairs, just, being, rolled around, and being lost, right, in all the crap that's being thrown our way and not knowing and seeing the truth around us. But one of the things that disturbed me about it was that if you actually go to, and I know that some people are going to criticize for this, but again, the wife likes to use it for different things. And so there are certain battles that you have to pick. This is one that I definitely am going to be much more prone or much more likely to pick over this, is that we were under Baby Thor's profile, which is a kid's profile. And when trying to do a general search, the general recommendations come up, and there is and again, this disgusts me. There is a Pride collection on Disney Plus. So a kid's profile, Pride collection. So you have all these other recommendations like of actual classics, and then you have Pride collection. And it is disgusting. So yeah, I add to that Disney refusing to distribute Sound of Freedom, and they have crap like that on their streaming service. Oh yeah. That's not far of a stretch at all. Anton, what's going on? See, Rob D, random question. Have you seen or have you ever been into board games? It depends. There are some board games that I like. Others, not so much. General Wingster, modern PG-13 is more like a hard G these days, especially compared to what the old G used to be. Orange Review says, Odin, if you seek a healthy pizza, there's a cauliflower crust pizza. Before you freak out, it doesn't taste at all like cauliflower. It's great. I've heard great things about cauliflower pizza, but for me, healthy pizza is kind of a... If I'm gonna eat a pizza, why would I want it to be healthy? Laura says, several cities are doing drone light shows more pet friendly. Oh, interesting. Okay. That's something that I could actually get behind, to be honest. Laura says, Context Wednesday. Just assumed with Tim Burton directing, Depp might show up for a cameo. That'd be cool. That'd definitely be cool to see something like that happen. Brian James, we all know you'll be watching Barbie first, all the while skipping and jumping to your seat singing Barbie Girl by Aqua. Oh, you know me too well, Brian James. You know me too well. Oh, happy Independence Day to you as well. Tex Caliber, what is going on? Aaron S., what is going on? Welcome to the chat. Icthulu, who is a member, says, Barbie is propaganda by capitalist dogs of America to indulge the excess of the bourgeoisie. I see what you did there. I will say, I have my doubts about Barbie in general because of the filmmaker. I do not trust the filmmaker at all. She's also a writer on the story. Let's see. Steven says, Wild, I was just reading a quick article on the Sound of Freedom background. Actor Caviezel stated that it was a project he was working with Fox Studio until Disney bought it and tried to end it. Yep. Kind of makes you wonder, wait, Disney, when you bought up Fox and the Fox deal, and again, the story that they might say is, well, they wanted more money. Well, when you think about how much money they spent, how much money they've wasted on movies like Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, Elemental, and pretty much every single one of their kids' movies since last year, at least, and many of their other mainstream projects that have just been complete and utter failures, how much money they've spent and wasted on that crap. I think the source I heard said they only asked for another $5 million in budgeting, and I'm thinking to myself, if that's too much for you, Disney, to tell a story as important as what Sound of Freedom covers, that immediately makes me now ask the question, especially with all the crap that happens during the month of June with Disney and everything else surrounding it. Okay, Disney, what's going on? You got something that you want to tell us? You got something that you want to tell us about some of the proclivities of your executives? About why they would not maybe want to have this story be told? Why they would not want to support this film? Why they would not want to give the kind of movie that, the kind of money that this film would need to be even better than what it is? Because it's got objective problems, and guess what? More of a budget probably would have helped. Does make you start to ask those questions, though. And I don't think those are unfair questions whatsoever, especially with all the crap Disney has done at this point. Just the red shirt. I wonder if Tony at Deadline would object to label child trafficking neutral movie reviewer. Seriously, I mean, it's just... Miss Minnesota fan. Priceless is a pretty good movie. It's along the same line. It's along the same theme as Sound of Freedom. Interesting. Fedigator, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Are we getting close to asking if Disney can do what is necessary to stay solvent? Florida trials, movie TV bombs, park attendants, layoffs? Seriously. No, I think that anyone who is a stockholder in Disney needs to demand that. I know that Valiant Renegade and others are excited for the earnings call, the Disney earnings call that will be in August, I think, is the next one. And what will happen. Because in all honesty, if no one is just ripping them to shreds, like just over and over again, people ripping them to shreds over everything, then at that point, I'm like, okay, you got to, abandon that stock. I'm not an expert on the stock market whatsoever, but to me at this point, it's like, why would you even want to have that kind of stock? Great Wuda, Superman Returns was boring. Agreed. I'm definitely not trying to defend that movie, but I do think that we could argue it's better than Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny. Forever Sci-Fi. Nice to see Kathleen Kennedy once again fighting that stereotype of women spending more than planned. Oh boy. Rage Grifter, what's going on? Icthulu, who's a member, hey now, Superman Returns had some fun moments. NFI was worse than bad. It was boring. Yeah. B-Red actually enjoyed Superman Returns. Okay, there you go. Hardwick says, is it possible that Dial of Destiny will have a lower box office than The Money 2017? I don't know. I'll have to look at that later on. Jonah Wingster, Disney had the top 2 spots this weekend. They're doing great. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Fing Book. What's going on? Let's see. Rage Grifter tagged to say, Disney price have increased more than inflation, so it's even worse for Disney. It really is. It really, really is. And it couldn't happen to a nicer company. General Wingster, what I'm hearing is Crystal Skull is the better movie. The sweet smell of vindication. So again, the way that I describe it in this way is, I think that for me, and I know that it was Laura who said the opposite, that I think that you clearly see Dial of Destiny is the worst Indiana Jones movie. Like, most people look at look at Crystal Skull, and they don't even acknowledge it. They say, there's only 3 Indiana Jones movies, let's be honest. Okay, that tells me that's not a good Indiana Jones movie. Crystal Skull also is really, really bad. However, it's so bad, it's funny at times. So for me, that's where I put that movie, whereas Dial of Destiny is just boring, so it's forgettable, but also it's a terrible Indiana Jones movie. I think that there are some people, though, that will probably go to that movie and have either no knowledge of Indiana Jones or have no care for the franchise and might find elements of that they don't mind as much. Let's explain it this way. If you are a fan of Indiana Jones, seeing him as this old man saying, turn the music down and in his underwear, that's going to upset you, and for good reason. But if you go into it with not caring about the character or with no knowledge of the previous stuff, guess what? That's not going to have that same impact. Like, for us, that's going to have an impact saying, okay, what the heck is going on here? But for normies, right, for general normal audiences, like, many of them will just be like, okay. And some of them will hate it for specific reasons. Some of them will like it for different reasons. Again, why anyone would like that necessarily, I don't understand quite myself. But there is a difference there. So, again, I know it's a difficult thing to completely explain, but I do think that this movie has a capacity for certain things that the other film didn't have. But it's also been so long since I've seen the last movie. All I can go based on is my general sentiment of how I felt after the movie. I was just pissed, for lack of a better expression, after Crystal Skull. And I'm mad after this movie too, but I also am so ambivalent that I actually almost care less in a certain respect, if that makes sense. This is one of those movies where in hindsight, and again, I'm a fan of the franchise, but I'm not a mega fan. I would put people like Drunk 3PO in that camp, and hey, that's why when I see the people and their reactions to the film, it makes complete sense why anyone would feel the way that they do. Whereas for me, yeah, I could definitely see everything they're saying, but I don't have the same emotional connection. Let's see. Your average picture nerd says, "Hail chat, hail Odin, happy 4th, happy 4th." JKD Buck 76 says, Justin C, I guess Dune 2 will be the most anticipated good film of 2023 after Mission Impossible 7 and Oppenheimer. 2023 feels like the year of the flop bomb. It's definitely the year of the major flop bomb because, we've had a lot of creative issues in Hollywood for many years at this point. But there's still good movies. Like, here's the issue too, is that there are good films that have come out that have just not made money. I point you to both of the films that came out this year. Oh my goodness. I always hate when my brain shuts off like this. Guy Ritchie. So for instance, Guy Ritchie had The Covenant this year, which I thought was a really, really good movie. And then a film I liked even more than The Covenant was Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. Again, no one saw that movie or probably has even heard of that movie unless you've been a part of this channel because I talked about it a lot when it came out. But again, those were two really good movies, but no one saw them. Neither of those films made a lot of money. So there are actually good movies that are coming out that just aren't making a whole lot of money or making barely any money. So that's the other thing too, is that it sometimes feels like there are more worse movies out there. I think this year there's just worse films that cost significantly more than in previous years. I mean, if you take the combined budgets of these films that are flopping, that's where I think you see kind of a distinguishing factor between other years. JKD Buck says, just can't wait for Dune Part 2. I refuse to watch The Dial of Dufry. I don't blame you. Hardwick says, people are celebrating too soon about Kathleen Kennedy having no George Lucas properties left to ruin. She could go after THX 1138, American Graffiti, Howard the Duck. I hope that was a joke because let's be honest. There's definitely nothing major from him that they can go after. Red Tails 2. Harvey, Johnny Depp should have been Gomez in Wednesday. No, I said this back when the show came out. What they should have had is they should have had Christina Ricci and the actor that plays, I forget his name every time, but the actor that plays Joel Blicker in Addams Family Values. They should have just been Morticia and Gomez, because anyone who is a fan of the live action movies would have said, wait a minute, I see what they did there. And we all know Christina Ricci could play that part. She could, kick butt in that part. And then the actor that played Mr. Universe in Serenity and then also played Joel Blicker in Addams Family Values, I think that ultimately you look at those actors, you look at him, his performance, I think also would have been phenomenal. So, yeah. But also because those were such minor roles in the show, it's something that over time I've not had as much care about. J.K. Buck, Strange Magic, Radio Land Murders, and Tucker must also be destroyed by Darthleen Kennedy. Yeah, seriously. Every single obscure property. Your average picture nerd, that's because Hollywood wants to hush the message of Sound of Freedom. I wonder why, too. I mean, again, remember, these are the same people who were calling Harvey Weinstein God. These were the same people. These were the same people that were, let's just be honest, no one can honestly say with a straight face that people like Meryl Streep and others who described in the same sentence as Harvey Weinstein the good name of God and tried to make some comparison between them, you cannot in good conscience tell me that they had no idea what was going on, that they had never heard anything about what was going on. Can't do it. And so, yeah, we absolutely can look at this. And I think, especially with things that I know Jim Caviezel in his interviews, and I wish the movie went more into this, because Caviezel's been throwing some bombs in some of these interviews, really calling into question like the CIA and other places. I wish that had been in the movie. I wish they had gone further into that, because that I think is even the bigger story. Because then those are even bigger fish, right? Those are even bigger fish to fry. And they should fry. Orange Reviews. To those who believe the clickbaiters on Kathleen Kennedy being out or fired, I pray your gullibility will cease. She feels upward, as I've been saying over the years. I won't believe she's gone until she's gone. And again, there are some people that are clickbaiting Orange Chat. There's others who I don't think are. I again was this past Sunday on a great stream with WW Pro and with Valiant Renegade, and they're awesome. They're great. And the reason why I love them, especially in regards to this story, is they are probably the most even-keeled about it. Because they both agree, too, even though, in the case of WW Pro, like, he has sources, but he says clearly, like, she's not getting fired. And I think that's the important distinction. Yeah, anyone who's peddling she's getting fired, oh yeah, that to me, that's clickbait garbage, if you're saying she's getting fired. But to say, no, the process of her leaving on her own, retiring, okay, now we're saying something a little bit, like we're saying something very, very different, right? Because yeah, you're right, she does fail upward. And so what you likely will end up getting is her retiring, stepping down from Lucasfilm in 6 to 12 months is what's being reported. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, I'm the same way. She will not be gone until she's gone. Like that, again, I'm totally in agreement there. But it makes a lot more sense logically to me, right? That 6 to 12 month exit strategy. But to your point, Orange Chat, it wouldn't surprise me that if she steps down as Lucasfilm's head, and again, she'll do it by her choice, she'll retire, but then you find out, but now she's being promoted to like a board member. So it's like she'll get something. She'll get like a promotion in a way, right? That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. But yeah, again, that's where I hope that distinction is, because I think sometimes when people hear me talk about and go after those kinds of stories, I think some people automatically assume that I'm talking about specific channels, and I want to make sure it is clear. I'm not talking about the channels that some people think I'm talking about. Again, I make reference especially to how I even did a video, a great discussion with a great panel with WWE Pro on Monday morning, actually. It was a lot of fun. It was great. Check those out if you haven't already. Let's see. Frank G. Which live-action Disney movie will bomb next? Snow White, Mufasa, or other? I mean, pretty much any of them are going to flop. And that's ultimately what I think. If they are having an emergency meeting, they're going to have to talk about this. They're going to say, okay, wait, let's just be frank here. Every single movie that we have had come out this year that has had a major budget to it has lost money, with the one exception being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's the only film they've had that has made any money, and it's not anything close to the losses that they've had. So they have to look at this right now and say, okay, Little Mermaid is flopping. Whatever our next live action is, it's going to cost about as much, if not more. And if no one's showing up for a property like The Little Mermaid, why would they then show up for a property like Mufasa? Why would they even show up for a property like Snow White? The only thing that Snow White might have, and again, I said this before, and it is a hard thing to quantify, is that even though the swapping of the race of that character makes no sense whatsoever, and I know that some people immediately shut off as soon as you even talk about that, but let's just be honest, okay? Be honest. Look at me with a straight face and tell me that this is not a dumb casting decision with what they're going for. The character's name is Snow White. Why is her name Snow White? Because her skin is white as snow. Literally, it's in the character's name. But the factor that I want to talk about is the actress they have playing Snow White is a good singer. She actually is someone that could probably play that part as far as the acting component. But guess what? Just because you have, I mean, let's be frank. This is always the example that we like to give. But just because maybe you have someone like Chris Hemsworth who could play the character of T'Challa acting wise, he could act like T'Challa, like T'Challa. He could act like Black Panther, but could he actually be Black Panther? Of course not. All right. Like in this case, it's even more like this is about as close as an equivalency as you can get. All right, Black Panther. Okay, wait a minute. Clearly, it has to be someone of color. Snow White. Okay, you can again. Some people have tried to make the arguments about, you can recast and you can have a reimagining and a revision of Little Mermaid and other things like that. And again, it's like, okay, whatever. The stories and the movies that they're telling are still crappy. And so, okay, good luck with that argument as far as you can take it. But in this one, it's like, you really can't go past it. It's like you're literally going against the the entire premise of the character herself. So yeah, I think all are going to flap. But again, I go back to the lead actress. She can still act. She can still actually sing. And she does have a strong social media following. We know social media following, though, does not equate to ticket sales. We know this as a fact. But again, that's one of those unknown factors because sometimes it has more of an impact than others. Yeah, Rachel Zegler is the actress's name. She actually can sing. She's actually really darn talented. General Wingster says, "Shut up, Odin. Let me have my moment." Never. I'll never let you have your moment. How dare you? How dare you? Let's see. Orange Eye Reviews, who is a member, says, shareholders can sue Disney for violation of fiduciary duties. There have been some shareholders decrying their woke direction. They've been losing money due to wokeness. They've betrayed shareholders. Yeah, and I think ultimately, if they don't move past just platitudes at this point and actually start to bring in investigations / lawsuits. And again, I'm not saying that they haven't started yet, but need to be a heck of a lot more now. Jacob is like, a celebration 2023 will be Kathleen Kennedy Viking funeral. Hardwick says, I still maintain that Crystal Skull is better than Dial of Destiny from a technical filmmaking standpoint. Okay, man. Chris Rose, I think most of the box office money will be hate watching. Oh, man. Hamilton Berger. As a normie, I am unfamiliar with the adventure of Mr. Illinois Jones. Thus, I am the target audience to watch the fedora-hatted Whipman film. Mr. Illinois Jones. I love that. Mr. Wisconsin Jones. You're going to go see Mr. Wisconsin Jones? Hello there, I'm Mr. Wisconsin Jones. Oh, you got yourself a fancy little object there. That looked really good in a museum in my fine state. I want to see that movie. You know what, Disney, just drop everything. Can you make Mr. Wisconsin Jones, please? I'd rather see that. Because just go ahead and bring any actor in that can have a stereotypical Wisconsin accent, and I'll be there opening night. I'll support it. Just make sure it's 90 minutes or less. Your average Patriot nerd. What are you talking about? Howard the Duck was brilliant. Yes, of course. Rob D. Do you think Christopher Nolan's name alone can sell films in a post-pandemic theater industry, especially after Tenet? I do. Now, does that mean to a certain extent that would make it money? I, at this point, would say no. I don't think that his name alone is going to make the film profitable. It has to be a good movie. That being said, one thing that Nolan's movies have always had is really good, effective marketing. Because even for Tenet, most people going into that movie, or most people preparing for that movie, were at the very least saying, oh, I'm actually interested in this film. After it came out, okay, you had a lot of mixed to negative, let's be honest, reactions to the film, especially when it comes to the sound design. The sound design and sound mixing was not really good, and that's been a problem on a lot of his projects, but it was especially prevalent in Tenet, which was confusing unless you knew exactly what was being said. And when you can't hear what they're saying, and it's important to the plot and important to you understanding the movie, that's a problem. But that all being said, the marketing for it was still effective. You know, the box office for Tenet, though it was not a success, it was still actually better than I think many of us would have expected it to be for the time frame that it came out in. So that's going to be the big test is what does he do opening weekend? Because that's going to tell us a lot about his name, value, but also whether his marketing is still effective, because he's had very effective marketing for a lot of his movies, if not all of his movies. And I know I'm excited for Oppenheimer. I know that it's got me hyped for it. And I'm sure that a lot of others could probably also have or feel in a similar way to it. But I do think that, yeah, I mean, for me, Tenet's not the film that would cause me to have any doubts about him because I like Tenet. I actually liked Tenet more than most other people. And I tell the story all the time. I went in hearing people tell me I could not understand anything they said. So I went in with that expectation, hyper focus. This is something. It's an ADD. I have ADHD, but it's ADD superpower. All right. Some people have it, some people don't. But if you have ADD, sometimes you can hyper focus like nobody else. So I went in and I was able to hyper focus, and I understood 95% of the dialogue. Still bad if 5%'s not audible, but hey, a lot better than other people. Other people said they couldn't even understand half the film. But I went in hyperfocus, and so I actually ended up enjoying the film quite a bit. But I tell this story all the time that for me, the Nolan film, and again, of course, now that I'm talking about it, I'm going to blank on the film itself. But for me, the film that I didn't like a lot, Dunkirk. Dunkirk was the one that for me, I'm like, okay, Nolan is not a, consistently great film guy. Obviously, Dark Knight Rises was also there. Dark Knight Rises is significantly worse than Dunkirk. Like, let's just be frank. But at least with the Dark Knight Rises, okay, one of your major stars died in between. Or, again, as you were probably already in your head having a story in mind featuring the Joker, losing that character, it's going to change some things. Movie still sucked, though. Dark Knight Rises still sucked. But Dunkirk, to me, was also one of those ones where the marketing for it was actually really, really good. The movie, not so much. So, yeah, I think that what we see from both of those movies are examples of how he still holds a lot of value. People still trust him. People still I still enjoy him as a filmmaker, right? I mean, even after all the stuff with Tenet, when Oppenheimer got announced, a lot of people that didn't like Tenet or didn't know what to think about Tenet, guess what? They still were like, oh, I'm intrigued by this. Oh, this looks like it's a return to form. Because when you actually have a form, like good filmmakers do, you have a form that you can return to, people can be forgiving. When you don't have a form to return to, then, it's a very much miss culture. Let's see. Jakety Buck says, Doomcock diverted away from the reason I started watching. Now he's tabloid. It's cringe. However, when he actually analyzes a film or show, it's spot on. Yeah, I mean, and that's what the sad thing is about a lot of other, people that might also do somewhat similar things. Because, yeah, it is sad when they become so obsessed on it. And again, I know that for many people, YouTube is their life. It is their job. It is how they support themselves. So I understand why people would go the route of, doing clickbait, whether it be thumbnails or titles and stuff. It makes sense from that perspective. And that's where it's difficult for me because I don't use it for that. It's not my primary source of income. Far from it. I do YouTube because I find it to be fun. And anything I make from YouTube funds my hobby, which is movies. So it funds the movies that I buy. The AMC A-list subscription that I have. Like it funds those things. But I can understand why others would run with. That's why it's always funny to me when I have those random comments that will call me, and it's very rare because I think anyone that actually watches my stuff knows I'm not very clickbaity. When I say something is a flop, it's because it's objectively a flop, But it is always funny to see those random comments every now and then where it's like, you're just rage baiting. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll probably be the kindest voice you will hear about a plethora of these films. Michael A. Tag to say, just watched Sound of Freedom. I've never described a film as disturbing yet triumphant. Yeah, I think that's a great way to describe it, man. Jonathan Redshirt, who is a member, says, how badly could modern Disney screw up Cool Runnings remake? Oh, gosh. Don't even mention it because they're remaking everything, Justin of the Redshirt. Please don't have them remake a classic. Feel the rhythm. Feel the rhyme. Because that would be the moment right there. There would be plenty of other moments too, but when they have that moment of the chant they say before they go, feel the rhythm, feel the rhyme, get on up, it's bobsled time, they would change it to be something about like human rights. And again, human rights should be fought for, but it would be the kind where it's like, okay, come on now. Come on now, Disney. Jakety Buck. Kathleen is going to be fired last Christmas. I'm super duper for cereal, everybody. Trust me, bro. Yeah, that's why anyone who's saying she's getting fired, like being sent out, and that they especially have a date on it specifically, it's like, get out of here. Hamlin and Berger. Tag to say, breaking news! My Inside Hollywood and Lucasfilm sources have reported to me that Kathleen Kennedy was actually a ghost the whole time. Also, her sled was named Rosebud. Oh my gosh. First off, Berger, those are spoilers, okay? That's a big spoiler. Rosebud, that's a big spoiler, okay? That's a big spoiler. I'm not going to even name the movie because I don't even want people to be spoiled on it, okay? It came out decades ago. It's a classic, but some people haven't seen it. So I will not allow that Hamilton burger. How dare you? Let's see, check it buck. Right now or tomorrow morning, Darlene Kennedy will throw a handful of her people under the bus to save her job. That's what idiot CEOs do. Yep. Well, are they idiots or are they smart? Because, CEO's job, they're delegation. So if you are able to somehow shift blame away from you, doesn't that make you smart in a certain fashion? Doesn't make you honest, but... Harvard, to be fair, Disney could argue that the dark themes of Sound of Freedom don't fit well with its family-friendly branding, but they have released it under the 20th Century Studios. But they could have... That's just the whole thing, though, Hardwick. They were. It was originally under 20th Century Fox, so it was already under that label. So when Disney stepped in, they did not continue the project. So no, they already did that. So you can't even give that to them. Let's see, Hardwick. To be fair, Rachel Zegler could look like Snow White if they put like makeup on her, like they did with Ana de Armas and Blonde. But is they going to do that? And again, if you're going to go after darkening up somebody, then you also have to go after anything else like that. So, Kerrigan, what's going on? You can enjoy what you enjoy, man. But Chronos God hanging out over on Rumble. Hail to you. Again, if you have a comment or question on any of the platforms, just put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment, @Odin. And lets me know that you're trying to get my attention. It's 8:20, so we got about 10 minutes left in the show tonight. Got 88 people still watching. Miss Minnesota fan says, not so Snow White is not going to need a man. Not going to need no man. Yeah, exactly. And that's where it is going to continue the trend of Disney movies. But again, at the very least, we'll be able to come out of that movie saying, well, Rachel Zegler sounded nice at least. She can sing. And she can. Your average picture nerd. VeggieTales had Minnesota kook? What? I just saw this one. Wisconsin Jones and the Golden Wheel of Cheese. Yes, let's make that one, please. Disney, if you have the rights to it, you might as well do that. Instead of, you could have saved a boatload of money and made a parody film under 20th Century Studios. You could have made a parody film called Wisconsin Jones and the Golden Wheel of Cheese, eh? And it would have been better. Yes, Cthulhu. Wisconsin Jones would be hysterical. Uper Jones says Forever Sci-Fi. Jaggedy Buck, come see this movie. It's about an archaeologist who uses a whip and is afraid of snakes, and he looks for the Ark of the Covenant from the Bible. Mom explaining Raiders to me with a straight face. Jeremy Zakowski, even God is telling Disney not to remake Snow White. I mean, check it out. Kentucky Jones and the Derby of Doom. Oh, yes. Yes, please. Check it out. My favorite Nolan film is the one about the one guy who did that one thing. Know which one I mean? Are you making fun of me, J.K.D. Buck? Because I sometimes forget things. But yes, I do know which one you mean. Just with the red shirt. Darkest Hour told the story of Dunkirk better than Dunkirk. Agreed. And Darkest Hour wasn't even that great of a film. It had an amazing performance from Gary Oldman. But yeah. General Wingster, can I get an early birthday shout out for next Tuesday in case I can't catch a stream? Yeah, happy early birthday, General Wingster. I don't know if you're being honest with that. Becky Brown, what's going on? Hail to you. Hardwick, there is a fan edit that cuts Darkest Hour and Dunkirk together to one movie called Finest Hour. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Jacob Buck, if they remake Back to the Future, we revolt. As long as Zemeckis is alive, that shouldn't happen. Eclulu, cannot stay longer, but wish you all a wonderful night and America! F yeah! Here to save the mother effing day, yeah! Great, great, great film. For sci-fi, since Kathleen Kennedy even made a self-insert in the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel, I'd actually pay to see her self-insert in Howard the Duck. Do it. Do it. Yes. Hamilton Berger, my sources are also ninjas, and they take umbrage at your heartful remarks. Also, they say my dad could beat up your dad. Oh boy. Well, I would say that's probably true. I could beat up my dad. At this point, it'd be elder abuse, though. Much love, Dad. He doesn't watch, by the way. My parents are of the age where I try to explain the whole concept of this, and they just say, oh, that's great, honey. Like, oh, that's great. And anytime they come to visit, it's always hilarious. It's like, oh yeah, how's the YouTube thing going? It's like, it's going great. It's going great, Mom. I love them though. But yeah, your dad probably could take my dad. But that's not much these days. Jesse J. Buck, if Disney remakes Big Trouble in Little China, Revolt. That'd be a weird one to remake. Rob D, I want to see it New York Jones and the Lost Pizza Brick Oven. Okay, that's way too meta, Rob D. Because now you're getting into the whole brick oven debacle at New York City and everything. That'd be great. Jordan Wingster says, yes, I am. July 11th is my Earth Day. No, really? 7-Eleven? That is the Lady Freya's birthday as well. Let's see. Abomination, Taddy say, how's your hobby on the internets? How's your hobby on the something about internets? Yeah, what's going on with the whole internet stuff? Is your internet stuff going well? Let's see, Kagan Rumsky, your favorite film of 2023 so far? Oh boy. I mean, John Wick Chapter 4 is up there for sure. I'm also a big fan of, I've mentioned two of them earlier. Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, The Covenant. Probably Operation Fortune is much higher on that list for me personally. For anyone who's interested, I do have a Letterboxd account where I do keep track of the films that I watch in a given year and my overall views of them. So I'm trying to think, because I've seen a lot of older films this year too. So it's sometimes hard to remember every single thing I've seen. Oh, Tetris was good. Tetris is probably going to be my top 5. That was an Apple TV film. Nefarious was also really solid too. So that one will be up there, I think. Oh, let's see. Anything else? Yeah, all these other films are 2022 releases that I watched in 2023. So, yeah, those would probably be the ones that are at the very least in my discussion for my top 10 at least. But there's some good ones, I think. Dean Heiss says, what are the little guys in Snow Off-White going to be called? Because I'm sure dwarves is offensive to someone. That is a very great question. What is it going to see? What is it going to be? Laura says, the stream needs more singing, but he can't chew gum while I'm singing. You're wasting your gum. Fosse. The wife and I watched that just last week, and actually, Laura, it's one of those movies where every couple of months we're at a loss. We're like, we don't know what to watch. And so then one of us just casual will say, about the birdcage. Okay. Fun fact about the birdcage. I mention this every time, so some of y'all might even know what I'm going to say. But a brilliant cinematographer, one of his early movies, in fact, was The Birdcage. Emmanuel Lubezki, the same guy who did The Revenant, who did Gravity, who did Birdman. He won 3 Oscars 3 years in a row for his cinematography. He was the cinematographer of The Birdcage. And it is a film where when you actually pay attention to the way it's shot, you're like, oh, this is actually very well shot. The best shot, in my opinion, is the zoom in shot where you get to, oh my goodness. I hate how my brain just chooses to not work so often. But it is when it is zooming in and you see Gene Hackman in full drag. It's a brilliant shot because you don't see him until the very end, and then it starts panning back out, and it's like, dude, Emmanuel Lubezki, such a talented cinematographer. Your average picture nerd says kook as in cucumber. Oh, interesting. Orange chat, New York Jones and the Sewers of Sanity. Instead of alligators, it's a Cthulhu monster. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I know a lot of people are going to say Sisu. I was very clear on this. I was not a big fan. I thought the trailer was better than the movie. Because the trailer, and this is where subjective versus objective comes into play. Because subjectively, I just did not enjoy it as much. because every single major action sequence I had already seen play out in the trailer. And I love the trailer. I was like, oh, this has me hyped. But then it's 90 minutes and everything in between those action sequences was boring. So if you liked it, hey, good for you. I just wasn't a big fan. Jiggity Buck, love John Wick 4. I love it too. Laura says, General Wingster is Freya. Oh, nay, nay. And I can say with a very simple statement, all right? My wife would not be watching these streams, and she doesn't watch these streams because she knows she, one, has very little interest in the subject matter that I talk about, and then two, knows that she would very much hate most of the things that I say. When they say opposites attract, Abomination over on Odyssey says, if I remember, there are going to be 7 magical CGI creatures now because that guy from Game of Thrones wanted to ruin job opportunities for short actors. Dang. Yeah, I think I remember hearing something about that too. But then it's like, doesn't that make it even worse? Because it's kind of bringing even more attention to it. General Wingster, I was me the whole time. Laura says, the wife and I rewatch Jaws all the time. Interesting. Like, that's an interesting rewatch film. Because obviously I recognize how great that film is, but J.K. Buck, Arizona Jones and the cookies based on the dashboard. Baked on the dashboard. Sorry. I like based on the dashboard better. It brings a sense of mystery to it. Nobody's dancing with me. Yes. Yes. Nobody wants to. Don't leave. No one's dancing with me. It's Gene Hack Person Bigot, of course. How did I forget? How did I forget? Pepina, what is going on? Welcome back. Oh man, Idaho Jones and the quest for potatoes. Florida Jones and the kingdom of the crooked mouse. Yeah, I went there. JKD Buck, you went there. KK and Rumsky, California Jones, and the city of feces. Oh, y'all are rocking it. Well, anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of time tonight. The end of time itself. So I just want to thank y'all all for being here tonight. This has been great. Again, happy and blessed 4th of July, everybody. I hope that you are all safe. Don't blow your hand off or anything like that. Don't do anything crazy. Dean Heist coming in with Ohio Jones and the Burning River of Fire. Oh, too soon. Dean, too soon, man. Oh, no. Oh, no. Gosh. Oh, but seriously, I hope that y'all all have fun. Have fun storming the castle. Yeah, absolutely, Laura. And this is always, as always, it's been hilarious. It's been great. But in all honesty and in all seriousness, going back just to summarize, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny is still a massive, massive flop, and it is set to still lose probably $250 to $350 million, especially if its budget was north of $300 million, which is probably likely. And it is just abysmal. I have not recorded my July shoutouts video yet, so I will go ahead and do part of this live if possible. So I want to shout out first, most of it hasn't changed, but shout out first to my Keep It the Bifrost level and above members on Patreon. Father Luca Illich, Heimer Irie Hymason, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Hat Reviews, check out his YouTube channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, who you can check out at her YouTube channel by the same name. My Subscribe Star members, Zine Vatas, Matt317, has a Twitch channel by the same name, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and the K-Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And to my 3 locals members, Miss Minotaur Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, and the amazing lawyer, Robert Barnes. So no visuals of the other names tonight. Again, I will try to get that recorded and created by my next video, which will be either tomorrow. I think I have been able to secure a ticket to go see the... oh my goodness. My brain is not working tonight. Everybody. Everybody. What am I saying? I don't know where I am. Who am I? Who am I? 24601. Asteroid City. There it is. Asteroid City. I think I finally secured a ticket to go see Asteroid City tomorrow, so I might be able to get a review up on the channel for that. We, of course, will have our box office preview coming up in the next couple of days as well. Tomorrow, I should be able to have a Good Morning Asgard podcast stream, so thank you all for bearing with me not being able to do the stream yesterday or today, but tomorrow should be able to have that stream back up and running. Abomination says, I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Once I do the thing, it's gone forever, and I can't see it if I did it. I don't know what's going on, Abomination. Yeah, so I'm wondering if I can see it because I'm the channel owner, but if anyone else was in it, then they wouldn't. That would be my guess. But thank you, Abomination, for trying to take care of that over there. But yeah. Also, again, other thing just to mention from the stream today, check out Sound of Freedom. It is a really solid movie. Again, it's not perfect. It definitely has some objective flaws to it, but it's very powerful. And I think that it's just a story that we, if we're not going to see it, we should at least support, because it is a story that is going to wake up a lot of people to a major issue that is impacting millions upon millions of innocent children every single year. And I think it's important for us to kind of remove that stigma. You know how it's a stigma in society right now, in everyday conversation. You don't talk about trafficking. You don't talk about the trafficking of innocent children and all the nefarious elements that are attached to that. And it's because it's uncomfortable. And it obviously should be uncomfortable, but it's also should never be uncomfortable enough to the point where we don't talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, it's like if you don't say the name, if you don't speak about it, then it can go unnoticed, it can go ignored. And I think it's important for us to kind of move past that. So again, shout out to The Sound of Freedom. Check that out. And again, if you go to angel.com, which is the site for Angel Studios, if you go to the Sound of Freedom tab, there's the option to not only claim a free ticket, you can go to see the movie for free if you can't afford it. People are paying it forward, which is what I did. I was able to buy a few tickets to try to help there. And you can buy it so that other people can go see it. So even if you yourself maybe don't feel comfortable watching it because of the subject matter, at the very least, support the film by paying it forward and helping others to go see it for free. So anyway, with all of that being said, that is going to be it for me tonight, everybody. I hope that you all have a wonderful and a blessed 4th of July. Again, take a moment just to be thankful for the things that we have in this life, but also remember not to lose sight of the fact that there are many people that do not have the freedoms that we have, and they need our help, especially those that are the most vulnerable in our society and in our culture and in our world. And as the film makes very, very clear, God's children are not for sale. God's children, I will add to that, cannot be used as science experiments. And we need to start to use our voices to speak up. But blessed 4th of July, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And as always, God bless.